Coming up on show 753, the Porsche Taycan 4S arrives in the US. But how far will it go? And what will it cost? Well, stick around, I'll tell you more. Plus, we're talking about General Motors beginning work on their battery plant. A new SUV with 8 seats, 700 miles. And what the heck am I talking about? And the first look at the VW ID3 Owner's Manual. Someone's managed to get online and find it and give you a list of features that the manual talks about, plus your answers to question of the week. Well, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily for Sunday, the 19th of April. My name is Martyn Lee, going through every EV story so you don't have to. And thank you as always to myev.com in the US for helping to make this show. I really appreciate the gang at myev and all of their help and all of the work they do on their website as well at myev.com. Electric vehicles are just better. You can head to myev.com, search by make and model and all the research that you need to do before diving in and purchasing that car. So first story today, and General Motors has broken ground on the new lithium-ion battery plant. The GM's going to be building near Lordstown, Ohio. They're doing it in partnership with the South Korean company LG Chem, according to GMauthority.com, quoting the local Lordstown publication, the Tribune Chronicle. Well, GM began grading land at the site where the $2.3 billion battery plant is going to be built earlier this week. The grading began, and now they're awaiting the correct permits to start work on the battery plant. And the Tribune Chronicle says that GM is planning to have the battery plant up and running as of January 2022. The plant will mass-produce battery cells for GM's future full EVs, including the GMC Hummer EV and the Cadillac Lyriq. Well, GM and LG Chem both own the facility through a new, joint, equally owned company. They've called the company GigaPower, and it's a split share between GM and LG Chem to produce these new battery packs. They're actually called Ultium. Just the name they've given them, the Ultium battery packs, and they're going to be putting those in sizes of 50 kilowatt hours all the way up to 200 kilowatt hours. I imagine those big battery packs will be reserved for things like commercial vehicles or even things like the Hummer. Big, heavy, not very aerodynamic, and you want to get some good range and power out of them, so you've got to get some batteries in there. Well, the version of the Porsche Taycan electric car with the most affordable price tag and, funnily enough, the longest driving distance is now available in the US. It's part of the lineup called the Taycan 4S, and it's reaching the first dealerships now, according to Green Car Reports. Well, how high is that range? According to the EPA range, 203 miles versus 201 miles for the Taycan Turbo and 192 miles for the Taycan Turbo S, but I've talked about on this podcast before, even down to the Taycan Turbo S, which has that larger 600 amp front inverter, the Taycan Turbos that have been given to the press. And okay, so these cars are pretty well put together. Press cars should be, not always, but press cars should be pretty well bolted together. The range far exceeds the EPA. Whether it's the different websites, the different YouTube channels out there that have been given a car, admittedly by Porsche, or in some cases just getting hold of a car themselves and taking it on road trips, I haven't seen anybody that's achieved the EPA range of 201 miles. It's been way, way higher, into the mid-200s unless you drive it silly. And so the Taycan 4S, which is now available in the US, has a couple miles more on the EPA range, but I think it's fair to say, not that I've done the tests myself, but I've seen those channels and those publications that I trust, it'll go a lot further if you're driving it normally. Well, the 4S has a smaller rear motor than the Turbo, or the Turbo S, and the curb weight is 178 pounds less than the Turbo. The battery pack inside it, well, if you go for the Performance Battery Plus option, 93.4 kilowatt hours, dual motor drive system, giving you 562 horsepower. With the overboost function and launch control enabled as well. There is a smaller 79 kilowatt hour version of the 4S. They call that the standard rather than the performance battery, and that's going to have lower performance numbers, but that's not here now. It's the bigger battery one, which is now on sale. Well, Porsche claims the 0 to 60 time of 3.8 seconds and a top speed of 155 makes it another great EV to add to the market. The Taycan Turbo S, and now the 4S And if you are a listener of this podcast and you are lucky enough to either have a Porsche Taycan or be ordering one, I'd love to hear from you as well. It's a car that I've not even seen in real life. It's definitely on my wish list of EVs to have a look at, have a little sniff around, and you never know if I can find somebody where it's insured up to the hilt, have a little drive around as well. I would adore that. The YouTube videos that are out there, you know what, make it like a really, really exciting car. Well, moving on, and this story, even though it's coming out on Sunday's podcast, we've had to wait a long time, but it does win Strangest Story of the Week award. Yes, on the 7th day of the week, this one definitely takes the winner by a country mile. There's a new EV maker in town. They're called Triton, and they've got a new 8-seat electric SUV. It's got 700 miles of range. They're based in New Jersey. Never heard of them before, but today they did announce they've got an EV. It's called the Model H, and the specs are out of this world. Some would say too good to be true. The Model H SUV has a 200 kilowatt hour battery. It does 700 miles, that's 1,126 kilometres on a single charge. And the powertrain has 4 electric motors. They've got one on each wheel for all-wheel drive. It's got 1,500 brake horsepower. And according to Triton, it can do 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Is there anything this SUV can't do? Well, it can also pull and carry, they say. It'll carry and pull heavy loads with no compromise. The towing capacity is 15,500 pounds. That's 7,000 kilograms. Oh, and they will gladly accept your deposit as of now. They say if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Well, I've seen nothing more of this car than a very nice render and a bank account you can send your money to. Good luck if you're in that category. Let's move on. A German YouTuber got his hands on a VIN for the upcoming VW ID3, which he'd ordered. Of course, it's the all-electric car that's not a Golf, from VW, and he used that VIN to decode the URL and get into the online manual of the ID3. This is definitely not something that VW would have wanted leaked. It's a bit of an accident. Don't worry, it hasn't spilt the beans, and there's no kind of crazy good or crazy bad in this story. It's just very, very solid. Well, this YouTuber discovered some high-tech features that you might not find on a cheaper EV. None of them are groundbreaking, but they're all very good. It wants to be a showcase of technology, according to VW. That says Bradley at Electric. It's got a percentage for state of charge during charging, which is always good. Not all EVs have that, but you can see when you're charging, the current state of charge as a percentage and the current charging controls as well. Standard on EVs, but not all of them. The ability to set the charging limit between 50 and 100%. Very useful, not on all EVs. When the charging session is finished, you have the option to either leave the charging connector released or connected. Nice touch. You can reduce the current for home charging. You know, for instance, if you wanted to charge another device, if you don't want to pull too much power, if you're charging overnight and you're happy to charge slowly and draw less juice. If you have the charger on a timer control, you can also set the lower battery charge limit to hit at a specified hour, so the battery is ready for your morning commute. These are all very solid EV features that if you were putting down the things that you wanted on an EV, these would all be on the list. Now, none of them are groundbreaking, but none of them, if they weren't on the car, would be a deal breaker. I just think it's very, very good that VW are getting the specs right. Video mode was discovered in the ID3's owner manual. In video mode, the infotainment system will play a video from any form of data medium, like the internal memory or a streaming service. The video will be relayed in the car's loudspeaker so you can hear it. The video image is displayed only when the vehicle is stationary as well. For safety, what you'd expect, when the vehicle's in motion, the infotainment display gets switched off, but the audio will still get played. There's Eco Mode Assistant. Well, Eco Assistant will increase the regen, what they call brake energy recuperation. You and I'll call it regen, without displaying any additional messages. And it may be the case if you take your foot off the accelerator and the radar system senses that there is a car, a vehicle, in front of you, which is slowing down. The regen will be adapted, the strength of the regen, to fit in with the vehicle in front of you for maximum regeneration of electricity. Lane change assist, or auto lane change I should say, sounds very much like Tesla's system. Auto lane change is available, and including the navigation data of the infotainment system, with a speed of 55 miles an hour or more, the adaptive cruise control will detect the speed limit of the road, and the car in front of you, if it's going too slow, it will change lanes in order for you to maintain your speed and then move in once again in front of the car that you have overtaken. Robust set of self-parking features too. By the way, no roof rack option available at all, and no towing at all. It says the manual clearly states the VW ID3 will not be rated to tow. There you go. I'll pop a link to Electric in the show notes, and it's our first look at some of the details that VW hadn't told us yet. We knew some stuff, but not all of that. Discovered by a bit of an accident, a happy accident. Well, Kia Motors has seen record European sales for new hybrid and EVs in the first quarter of the year. Despite a decline in total vehicle sales because of the spread of the virus, Kia captured its highest ever share of European market for the battery electric vehicle segment, says newmobility.global. In Q1 2020, so Jan, Feb, March, Kia's battery electric vehicles, so that is the e-Niro and the e-Soul, careful how you say that, in the UK it's Soul EV, by the way, badged differently here. They accounted, those two cars, for 32% of all electrified vehicle sales from Kia, and I must remind you, electrified does include the soft hybrid stuff as well, which they're even calling self-charging, don't they know there's no such thing. Plug-in hybrid models, including the new plug-in hybrid variants of the X-Seed and the Seed Sport Wagon, growing in popularity to about 30% of the electrified sales. They do plug-ins, they do pure battery electrics, and sadly, they still roll out some of that soft hybrid stuff as well, which was all very clever 10 years ago. Let's get on to Question of the Week now. And I was asking you on Question of the Week when all this virus stuff is over, and it will be, and it hopefully will be soon, but we should do the right thing and maybe just it'll last a little bit longer, but it'll be over. It will be over before we know it, and life will be back to normal, and the pause button will be unpressed. So what can we do as soon as possible to get people driving electric vehicles? Rajiv Narayan says there are definitely many people who would be better served with an EV and just don't know it, and don't know anyone who has an EV, such that an EV is so far out of their personal experience. It's a good point, actually. If you know people with an EV, it's easy to, catch a lift or try it out, but reaching those people is going to be crucial, and that's a really, really good point from him. EV adoption seems more constrained by battery availability than anything else. There are more people who want an EV than can get one. Government and industry efforts in improving battery manufacturing and availability and cost will improve the EV adoption the greatest. When more EVs are out there, more people will see them, more friends of yours will own one, and demand and sales will take off. Stephen Bollinger says, what can we do to get people driving EVs as quick as possible? Test drives. Test drives. Test drives. Other things like incentives do help, but how many EV enthusiasts didn't think highly of them until the moment they pressed the go pedal? And it all changes when you first drive an EV. How many of us came into the EV community after that first drive? Get more people behind the wheel. Yeah, I agree, Stephen. More people using a service like Try EV here in the UK to get you behind the wheel of an EV. 11K on YouTube. There's another way to do that. He says dealers are involved. Dealers of car makers should offer EVs as loaner cars from now on. If a dealer is giving out a loaner car, either because of a car coming in for servicing or for accident and damage repair, it should be standard practice that they are not giving out polluting petrol cars, says 11K, and people will not turn down a free loaner if it's an EV. They'll get the double whammy of realising that an EV wouldn't have needed whatever service that their car is in for. Well, I'm not sure about that if your car is in for damage repair, but I know what you mean, 11K. I know what you mean. They will drive an EV and think, oh, this might be better than the car that I've got in for my servicing, and maybe this will be the next one that I buy. Susie Wolf says, not that Susie Wolf. Susie Wolf says, I remember when Honda's Electric Fit went from $500 a month to $280 for unlimited miles and included insurance, and all of a sudden, all 500 units in California evaporated. I'd seen Bolts at around that price without insurance and 8,000 miles a year at a dealer in Southern California, but GM were giving up on incentives for the Bolt when the Model 3 sales took off, says Susie. I bet if Nissan or GM put a price on the car for the monthly fee, depending on battery size, for a 3-year lease with insurance included, they would shift all of them that they can possibly make, she says. Dave W. says the best way to do it would be to let trusted friends drive your EV. I generally tell people not to drive one unless you're ready to buy one, because when you do drive one, you'll want to buy one. Hello to Alan Osborne, who says, get people into EVs. Price, says Alan in the UK. And Roger Starkey says, build more of them. Short and sweet from Roger. Josh Pritt from Space Coast EV Drivers at Melbourne, Florida. A very easy way to get people to switch to EVs when we're back at work is to show 2 pictures side by side of the air pollution haze which isn't there over cities like Los Angeles, and the clean air over the city after the stay-at-home order. Alex Banahini says, I think the best way for legacy automakers to boost EV sales after the lockdown is to train their staff. When he was buying a Zoe, he was told by the first local showroom he went to that he didn't want a Zoe. Actually, he wanted a Dacia Duster. And then he went to the next dealer, and the dealer said the Zoe would only go 100 miles. What he wanted to buy was a Clio, as it has the same infotainment system. Yeah, I think you're right, Alex. And you can't tar all dealers with one brush. I had a pleasant but terrible experience with my local Renault dealer when I bought my first EV. They were very nice. They made me a very nice coffee, but they definitely weren't interested in selling an EV. When I said I want that car, there was no negotiation on any of their other cars, and this was the price that we were paying. And, oh, by the way, here is the money. So there's no real big kickback for them. So it was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a simple one. They still did the trick of, I've got to go back and speak to my boss to see if we can do that price for you, of which I just looked at him. And if I hadn't wanted the car so much, I would have walked out, because I really can't stand people playing crappy games from the 70s and 80s to close a sales deal. Those things do still go on. I've got to go out the back and ask my manager. He went out the back for 5 minutes and probably had a slurp of his own cup of tea. There was nobody in the room that he went into. Anyway, so my second EV that I bought, I made sure that I went to a dealer who I know and trust and had the most amazing experience with, and that was an entirely different experience. So, you pick and choose well. And so I know what you mean. And actually, yeah, it's going to be a really big thing. And and actually the dealerships need help as well. And actually they need help from, if they can't run their own training programs, there need to be other training programs available where someone will come in, talk about EVs for the day or week, or put a program together or something. But I know what you mean by that. Hello to David Barber, who says, when things are back to normal, having a cost analysis breakdown to give to people would answer the question when someone says, how much does your EV cost to run? Don't just explain it to them, but give them a little printed sheet to say, look, this is how little it costs. Jennifer Montgomery says the US government should extend tax credits for EVs. They should do cash for clunkers to buy in dirty old cars that are still on the road. Tesla could have their vehicles star in a movie. That could be the new Knight Rider. Could be the new kit. Would encourage lots of people to want one. And finally, John Fruworth. Last but not least, just because I got to John's email last, he says, and this is comprehensive, the car industry must overcome its addiction to fossil fuels. Get out of bed with the fossil fuel industry to realise that the evolution of fossils is over, to embrace the revolution of battery electric vehicles, to invest more in battery development, to know that you're going to take a bit of a short-term hit for long-term gain, to stop downplaying battery electric vehicles and to invest in renewables. The industry must make charging easier and faster, and multiple charging networks compatible with each other, developing standards across charging networks like Plug and Charge to promote many benefits of EVs, the economic and environmental benefits, and to place EVs in front and centre. of their marketing and product placement, and to make owning fossils socially unacceptable as smoking is now. And if you go back in time, even the doctor would prescribe you a cigarette back in the day, because they were on, I'm sure, a handsome deal from a certain cigarette company. If you went into the doctor's, say, with a sore throat, they would prescribe cigarettes. So we only work with the knowledge that we have at the time, and there will be a time, John, in the future. We look back now at 2020 in the future. I can't believe we were doing that. And there will be a time when driving a car that spews fumes is as socially unacceptable as blowing smoke in someone's face. It is now. It just takes time. Thank you very much to everyone who answered Question of the Week this week. I rattled through them, and there was more. We're at 20 minutes already, so let's get to the end, because I want to read out the names of my patrons. But first of all, a new question of the week is set now, and I'd love to hear from you. Do you prefer to buy new or used when it comes to EVs, and why? Email me hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on the YouTube show. I'll read out yours next Sunday. 237 people make this show happen on Patreon. My premium partners: Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for Clean Tech Talent, Porsche of the Village Cincinnati, and Audi of Cincinnati East. My partners: David Allen, OEM Audio of New Zealand, and evpower.co.nz. Hello to Paul O'Connor. Hello, Paul. TryEV, who I mentioned earlier, tryev.com. Gareth Hamer is a partner of the show. eMobility Norway, talking about people who spend their time educating others about the benefits of e-mobility. Check out eMobilityNorway.com. Bob Boothby. Hello, Bob. ev-resource.com. And Mia Oppelstrup. And all of my exec producers: Alan Robson, Alan Shedd, Alex Vanahini, Alexander Frank, Anders Ho, Andrea Jefferson, Asir Khalid, Ashley Hill, Björn Fuchstak, Brent Kingsford, Brian Thompson, Bruce Bohannon, Charles Hall, Chris Hopkins, Colin Hennessy, and Cam ZV. Craig Coles, Craig Rogers, Damian Davis, Darren Bird, Darren Finch, Darren Sant from Yorkshire EVs, Dave Jewson, David Bachman, David Finch, David Partington, David Prescott, Derek Riley at the Dublin EV Owners Club, Don McAllister at screencastsonline.com, now a double EV owner, Enrico Stefan Shillo, Eru Hyuni Nyombi, Frederick Rovic, Free Jewel, who's James, Gene Rubin, Gilberto Rosado, Jeff Lowe, Headley Wright, Ian Griffiths, Ian Sear, Ian Watty Watkins, Jack Oakley, James Storr, Jerry Allison, Jim Duggan, Jim Morris, John Bailey, John C. Solar, John Lacey, and Click Like Video NZ, John, who is Beardy McBeardface at Kent EVs, John Nodell, Juan Gonzalez, Ken Morris, Kevin Mayerson, Carl Mayan, Lars Dodger, Lawrence D. Allen, Lee Brown, Luke Cully, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Mark Bossett, Marlon Shell, Martin Croft, the Dorset Tradesman, and Matt Piccioni. Maz Shah, Michael and Luke Turrell, Michael Pastroni, Michael Cuffin, Mike Rogers, Mike Winter, Nathan Gore Brown, Neil E. Roberts from Sussex EVs, Nigel Miles, Northern Explorers, Ohad Aston, Paul Ridings, Paul Stevenson, Perry Simpkins, Pete Glass, Pete Gordon, Peter and D. Roberts from Oxon EVs, Phil Mouchet, Pontus Kindblad, Raj Badwell, Rajiv Narayan, Ralph Jensen, Renee Schneider, and Rob Cooling, and appledriving.co.uk. Rob Hermans, Robert Grace, Robin Tanner, Rupert Mitchell, Sari Kanga Soja, Seiki Payne, Stephen Penn, Steve John, Thomas JTS, The Plug Seekers, the EV YouTube channel, another great video released recently as well, Tim Gutteridge, and William Langhorne. If you would like to check out what it's all about, Patreon is patreon.com/EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.